Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We'll talk today about the estimation of genetic risk. Our objective today is to calculate the genetic risk based on Mendelian inheritance. The factors for estimation of the risk are: number one, diagnosis of genetically inherited disorder, then drawing the family pedigree. From both of these, we can adopt a mode of inheritance. And from detecting carriers to localize the target allele, we can calculate the risk. Let's take this case. The proboscis is a male who has the genetically inherited disorder. His grandmother also had this disorder. So both males and females are affected, and they are sporadic. What is the mode of inheritance in this case? Of course, it is autosomal recessive. As autosomal recessive, the proboscis should be a homozygous recessive like this, and he inherited the recessive alleles from both of his parents who are heterozygous. So his brothers and sisters will be 3 unaffected, as he is 1 affected. The 3 unaffected of his brothers and sisters should have, or the probability of having carriers between them is 2/3. And so 2/3 are carriers and 1/4 is affected. Let's look at this family. The affected female has been married from a male and had a normal girl. Possibly the male is homozygous dominant. If this female who should be heterozygous is married to a homozygous dominant male, they will get children. Half of them will be homozygous dominant, and half of them will be heterozygous carriers. Now, if one male of this family married a female from the second family, what is the probability that they will have an affected offspring? How do we calculate that? First of all, for the father to be a carrier, the probability is 2/3. For the mother to be a carrier, the probability is half. For the child to be having the disease, the probability is 1/4. So the risk of affected child for this family is 1/12. Okay. Let's look at this case in which autosomal recessive from general population is married to a person from a family who is known to have the genetic disorder. What is the probability of having children having the disorder? The risk for the recessive inherited cystic fibrosis in European population is 1 over 20. Now, if we have two parents who are heterozygous to cystic fibrosis, they will get their children, 3 of them normal, not having showing the disease, 2/3 of whom are carriers, and 1/4 of their children is affected. Now, if a male who is not showing the disease marries a female from the general population, now the female from the general population, the probability of having the recessive allele is 1 over 20, and the male, the possibility or the probability of having the recessive allele of the male is 2/3. If they are married, what is the probability or the risk of having an affected child? In this case, we will multiply 2/3 for the male times 1 over 20 for the female, and 1 over 4 or quarter to show the disease, and this effect or this risk will be 1 over 120. Now, let's look at this case. Family 1, both parents have been diagnosed as having the genetically inherited disease. Family 2, the mother is having the disease, but the father is free. The first family, in the first family, the progeny showed that both diseased persons who were males and females, and some unaffected persons who was female. In the second family, all the children represented or have the disease, and both males and females are affected. Now, if one of male of family 1 married a female from family 2, they got the both affected and non-affected females, while when a female from family 1 married a male from the general population, they got or they had affected males. You see here that the disease or the disorder is represented in both males and females, and is represented in all generations. So, what is the mode of inheritance of this disease? Yes, of course, it is autosomal dominant. Now, let's look how can we put down the genotype, and we will start with the male here, or this in family 2, as the father is free, he should be autosomal, or he should be homozygous recessive, and so all the children will be carriers. In this family also we will find that this is a carrier because he has a sister who is free, but his parents are having the disease. And so in this case, we can identify the carriers and the recessive, homozygous recessive children or individuals. Now, what is the probability of, or the risk that family 3 would have an affected child? Of course, it will be 3/4, because only 1/4 will have the autosomal recessive, the homozygous recessive genes, alleles together, but the 3/4 will be either heterozygous or homozygous dominant. Now, what is the risk that family 4 would have unaffected, not affected child? The unaffected child should inherit the recessive alleles. He should be homozygous recessive, and he should inherit the recessive allele. The probability of getting a recessive allele from his mother is 2/3, because the mother, 2/3 of these individuals will be heterozygous, and the probability that the person himself will have the homozygous recessive alleles, this will be 1/2, and so this will be 1/3. Let's look at this case. This family, the father is showing the disease and the mother is not. The progeny, 2 of them having the disease. One of them married a normal girl and got children with the disease. What do you think? This disease who is in males and females and in all generations. It is autosomal dominant. That's true. Okay, autosomal dominant. Let's look at this probability, and we expect that the father and mother, the first father who is heterozygous and the mother who is homozygous recessive, will get half of their children carrying the dominant allele. So their half will have the dominant allele. Now if this girl is married a boy who is normal, and they got a girl who showed the disease, he is not showing the disease and she is not showing the disease, but their daughter is showing the disease. What do you call this case? This case is called incomplete penetrance. It has a specific probability or specific percentage that it appears among those who carry this disease. Let's say that in this case, assume it's 80% penetrance. We call it 80% penetrance. Now, where did this girl get the dominant allele? She got it from her mother, but her mother, although she is having the dominant allele, she doesn't show the trait. So she is of the 20% of such cases who do not show the disease. Now, how about the her brother? What is the probability of her brother of having the dominant allele but not showing the trait? Having the dominant allele is half, not showing the trait is 20%. So there is a 10% probability that her brother is having the dominant allele but not showing the trait. Now, let's look at this. If this girl is married to a normal boy, and what is the probability or the risk that their child would have the disease? For the child to have the disease, he should have the dominant allele. The probability of having the dominant allele is half, and the probability of having the dominant allele and expressing the disease is 80%. So the probability is 40%. How about her brother? If he married a girl who is normal, what is the probability that one of his children will be affected? First of all, the probability that he has the dominant allele, which will be inherited to his child, and that he doesn't show the disease is 10%. And the probability that his child will have the dominant allele is half. And the probability that he will show the disease is 80%. So the probability or the risk of having an affected child is 4%. Now, let's look at these families. Look at the pedigree of these families. Family 1 and father and mother and their children. One of their children, a girl, married to a man from the population, and the other boy was married to a girl from the population. Here we found that the diagnosed disease was found in males sporadic in between the families. What is the mode of inheritance of this case? As we have known before, this is X-linked recessive inheritance. As X-linked recessive inheritance, the male is the carrier of the inherited trait, and he also have the allele which is expressed in the inherited trait. And his father and mother, as you see, his father is normal with normal X, while his mother is a carrier. Starting with him, we can write down all the genotypes of the whole family. Now, let's look at this. This family, the probability of any family to get a male is 50%, half. And the probability to get a female is half. The probability to get a female carrier is half, because half of them in this case. And the probability to get a male affected is half. So these are the probabilities that we can get from this family. Now, what is the risk that this family would have an affected male? First of all, the risk of having a male, or the probability of having a male, is half. And the probability that the male is affected to be affected is half. And so the probability is quarter. Let's review some cases and the way of dealing with them. Let's take this case. Ali, a 7-year-old boy, has all the features of the autosomal recessive hypophosphatasia infantile. His parents, Ahmed and Layla, and his sister Iman were normal. His uncle Sami and his son Adil were also normal. Iman was married to her cousin Adil. Now, this is the pedigree which is needed for this case. Indicate the possible genotype of each member. Of course, Ali is homozygous recessive, and the rest are possibly heterozygous. What is the risk that Iman and Adil would have the first child with the disease? Now, the risk that his uncle Sami is heterozygous is half, and the risk that his cousin Adil is half from his father and half for him, equal quarter. So the risk of Iman to be heterozygous is 2/3, and so the risk of having an affected child is quarter for his father times 2/3 for his mother times quarter to be affected, and this is 2/48 or 1/24. Let's take this case. Sami, a 15-year-old boy, was presented to you as a dentist with a dark brown colored teeth. You diagnosed the case as the genetically inherited trait, pigmented hypomaturation form of amelogenesis imperfecta. So, Sami is the proboscis. His parents, Gamal and Salwa, are cousins, and so we have two lines in between them, one for marriage and one for consanguinity. Salwa told you that her brother's daughter has the same symptoms. Here is her brother and his daughter. And Gamal noted that his sister's daughter also has these symptoms. This is the sister of Gamal and her daughter. They also remembered that their grandfather, who was non-smoker, had brownish teeth. Now, this is the pedigree. Gamal and Salwa were worried about their 3-month-old girl and asked you about the probability that their daughter would show the disorder. You found that the disorder was due to abnormal extracellular matrix protein coded by the gene amylogenin at the locus 3p22. Draw the pedigree of this family. Here's the pedigree. Write down the phenotype and genotype of each member. Try to do that. What is the mode of inheritance of this trait? You see that both males and females are affected, and they are sporadic, not in all generations. So what do you think this case or the mode of inheritance is in this case? Okay, think about it. Now, what is the risk that their little daughter would inherit the trait? Okay, now let's try this case. Ali Morsi has missing teeth and inability to sweat. Here is Ali Morsi, is a proboscis. His case was diagnosed as a type of ectodermal dysplasia. He was married to Suhair Alwi. Here is Suhair Alwi. Suhair and her daughter Nadia were normal. This is Suhair and her daughter Nadia. Both were normal. But Suhair's father Amin and his brother Imad had the same syndrome. So Suhair's father and his brother Imad, who is the were having the disorder. Their sister Nabila, mother of Ali Morsi, here is Nabila, and she is mother of Ali Morsi, put it like this, however, did not show any of the symptoms. Their father, Muhammad, and their mother, Aisha, were normal. But Aisha's brother, Rami, here is Aisha's brother, Rami, had the same syndrome. The father of Aisha, Murad, and her mother, Tafida, were both normal. Draw the pedigree of this family. Here is the pedigree. Write down the genotype of each member, of course, after you know the mode of inheritance. What is the mode of inheritance of this trait? You see that the males are affected and they are sporadic. So, what do you think this is? Yes, it is X-linked recessive. Now, so X-linked recessive, this boy or this man, Ali Morsi, has the X allele, which expresses the disorder, and so he is XY like this. And his mother or his wife has is heterozygous. Why heterozygous? Because her father had the disorder, so she should get the allele from her father. Now, the mother of Ali is heterozygous, and both of these have the allele, and so this is the pedigree and the genotypes of the family. What is the risk that Ali and Suhair would have a baby girl with the syndrome? 50% for them to have a boy and 50% for the girl to have a girl with the syndrome, and you can try yourself and see that. Thank you.